Good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Clarke. I'm the Digital Services Programmer at UCD Library. I'm going to speak to you a little bit this morning about the digital curation and preservation activities at UCD Digital Library. So UCD Digital Library came into existence in 2012, and we'll soon be celebrating our 10th birthday. Prior to this, the good work of the Irish Virtual Research Library and Archive was leveraged, and we migrated and redeveloped the service between 2010 and 2012. So at present we have about 95 collections. We've just launched one yesterday, and we hold over 1 million digital objects, and 27 repositories are represented, and we have over 500,000 views so far this year. The primary mission of UCD Digital Library is to preserve and provide access for the digital assets of the cultural heritage repositories at UCD, as well as high-profile external partners such as the Garden Museum, Irish Lights, and Ordnance Survey Ireland. The primary repositories would be UCD Archives, UCD Special Collections, and the National Folklore Collection. We're a small team. We're led by Audrey Drone, the Digital Library Manager. Orna Roach is our Metadata Librarian. Claire Gibney is our Library Assistant, and I'm here at the bottom of the pile as Digital Services Programmer. So in this talk, I'm going to briefly give an overview of the Digital Library in terms of technology and preservation. I'm going to focus more on the lessons learned and what's next for the Digital Library over the next few years. So the technology is quite convoluted, and that's part of the point of this presentation. It's built using open source applications and tools exclusively. We use Fedora Commons as our repository, and then everything in there is indexed by Gsearch into Solar, and then we have an Apache PHP front end. We extend services then using home-baked APIs, and we have a Spark endpoint for linked data access, and we mint DOIs using the services provided by DataSite. All our cataloging is done within a tool that we developed ourselves. We've affectionately named IMAD. I'll come to this later, but it's built on a complex MySQL database and has a FileMaker front end. In terms of preservation, our preservation system at the moment is Lyricist DuraCloud, and we've integrated that, I think, back in 2014. And in 2015, we became the first Irish institution to adopt the IIIF image framework. And that uses the Loris image server, Mirador viewer, and JPEG 2000 images underneath all of that. So here's slightly out of date synopsis of the various moving parts of the digital library. I'm not going to focus too much on this, but if anybody has any questions, you can ask me later. And this is our cataloging tool that I spoke about. And we developed this in 2014 after about 6 months of project, quite complicated, quite detailed in its scope, but quite flexible, and has allowed us to develop the way we have over the last few years. The workflow processes and the various stages within UCD Library, the Digital Library, are quite complicated. There are currently 8 processes with a number of stages within each of those. And again, I won't have time to go into each of these, but I will show the part that I come back into the process after the initial profiling. So this is really the part where the technology kicks back in, and we translate metadata into different formats, or images into different variations, and we create the preservation metadata and the preservation files, and then index all that and put it into the repository, and then that allows us to provide access to this. We use a lot of different tools, different scripts, use all sorts of things to manipulate the data from our IMAN database and ingest that into the digital repository. So with any luck, after a couple of days, a collection ends up here. This is our homepage. We see here our Irregular News, Civil War and Republican Ephemera collection, which launched yesterday. And this is a representation of that, and this is what the top level collection record will look like. And you see all our beautiful metadata is laid out in here. And the object level, we present everything in a quite detailed way, but it has links to the subject headings, and in the top right hand corner you'll see links to view the image using our Mirador viewer. One of our most recent developments is the integration of right statement as a standard for more, I think, transparently declaring the copyright status of an object. So all of this allows us to do cool things, to present images and to develop this further. Here is an example of the image crop tool that we've developed using the IIIF standard and a lot of JavaScript, and allows you to take an image from within an image and create a persistent hyperlink to that sub-image. Is that a word? Further on from there, we've been able to do things like integrate a third-party service called From the Page that allows us to create potentially crowdsourced solutions to the nightmare that is handwritten transcriptions. But most importantly, allows us to bring those transcriptions from those objects that the general public may do, and allows us to bring those back into our collections and then index that and provide more granular levels of access to our objects and collections. So all these workflow processes, the different stages of this, create a real nightmare in terms of data storage. For each stage, you have different variations and different, I guess, stages of readiness in terms of the data that you're going to finally ingest here. So we've seen our data usage increase exponentially over the last 10 years. It got to a point where we became the single largest consumer of SAN, or network SAN storage on the university campus, ahead of core business systems like our HR and student records and financial systems. So that presented a problem for our IT service department, that we were very quickly hitting our head against the ceiling in terms of capacity and what we could do. So we needed to come up with a solution that would give us room to grow and also, you know, provide stability and robustness in the data storage solution. So after a number of months, we went through a number of providers, and we settled on Amazon as our cloud storage provider in 2018, and we began a project that took about 6 months to migrate 25 terabytes of production storage to the cloud. And this day and age, it still takes a lot of time to do this. So that's one thing to be aware of. It allows us to build on this now. We can leverage cold long-term storage for preservation, and also services in the cloud for backups and disaster recovery. In terms of digital preservation, we use accepted Library of Congress file format standards and metadata standards. As I said before, we integrated Lyrasis DuraCloud back in 2015, and that provides smart preservation tools and embedded security and health checks and verification of everything. So everything in there is safe and monitored, and you will get reports if there's any degradation in files or any issues whatsoever. Our production storage is synced to this Amazon S3 storage, and then that again is mirrored to Amazon Glacier for cold storage. Last year, we were awarded the courtship seal, which is a recognition of being a trusted digital archive, just trusted digital repository. It's an incredibly worthwhile process, as it gets you to look at your workflow and your practices from top to bottom and get your house in order, and insists on you having documented processes and policies that we will stand by. So it demonstrates adherence to best practice and standards. And, you know, this is a cyclical process. So every couple of years, you have to provide examples of how you've improved and developed your services. And so, yes, like I said, we were awarded this in May 2020. So after 10 years working with the Digital Library, it's a good point to review things and, spend time looking at the things you've learned. I think we're very fortunate in this field that we get to learn new skills every day. I don't think any day is the same as the one before. The digital library landscape evolves quite quickly, and because of that, you learn these new skills every day. So with that, in a small team, we've seen that everyone kind of starts to, absorb different parts of each other's jobs. So you become multidisciplinary, you develop knowledge in areas that you may not do in a traditional library setting. But despite that, you also learn that one person can't know it all, can't do it all. So teamwork is crucial. In terms of digital preservation, I think very clearly you'll need more storage than you think you will. The workflow stages and processes that we've developed over the years demonstrate that digital curation takes time if you're to do it well. Anybody can slap any old metadata onto an image and put it online, but that's not really digital curation. We've seen, I use this term, every collection is a snowflake. You can have two collections that on paper look very similar. They might have the same type of images, they might have similar metadata, but there's something that makes every collection unique. And, that can be a challenge, or and at times it is. But it's also one of the best parts about this job is that, you get to work with all sorts of things, from traditional images to 3D visualizations to 3D objects. And I think the key message here is that digital preservation is never done. You can take that both ways. I think in that it's never complete, and that preservation is something that we're charged with and we will be doing for as long as we're working in this field. Preservation is forever. But also I think in terms of standards and preservation, we're not there yet. At UCD Digital Library, we have more work to do. And we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of months looking at this and highlighting our preservation needs. So these are represented as a number of risks to us at the moment. Like all of us, we're all getting older, but so is our digital infrastructure. We've developed bespoke tools and ad hoc solutions that I've discussed earlier on. That's also painted us into a corner, and that in terms of development, it's now upon us that we have to redevelop quite drastically. And we've seen huge change management issues. One of the things about developing in-house is that you're also responsible for the change management and the documentation and everything else that goes with developing systems. And that can be quite complex, especially in a small team. So I think we're faced with huge change management issues right now. And that is probably the most problematic element for us. The risk of not taking preservation seriously is obviously things like data loss. We've been lucky so far. We've not really encountered any issues like this, but also through not preserving things correctly or curating things correctly, you can be susceptible to things like, it might not be bit rot or it might not be file deletions, but if you can't find something, that's also a form of data loss. And you could have multiple copies of something on a hard drive and not be able to find it. So that's no good to you either. The reputational risk of data loss is huge to a university. So I think the lack of adherence to preservation standards, or the lack of total adherence to preservation standards and technologies, is something that we are faced with, and a challenge that we have to face head on now. We've been faced also with reduced budget, which has meant that some support memberships, such as our DPC membership has had to be paused, which has obviously been a huge blow to us as a team. I think generally the university underestimating and undervaluing digital preservation is probably the most significant part of this. So faced with these risks and challenges, we've spent the last couple of months focusing on what we would like and where we need to be. We developed a business case, which has been recently accepted by UCD Library Management for a new digital library system. So as part of that, we'll undertake a holistic review of systems and services. We'll re-architect our digital infrastructure, and preservation will be prioritized as part of this. So this will lead hopefully to many more new collections and in a shorter period of time. With this new opportunity, it gives us the opportunity to properly embed digital preservation at the foundation of everything. We've very much been focused on, I think, access and providing access to objects and collections in as user-friendly manner as we could. But I think the focus from now on has to really start with digital preservation, and we build from there. This will allow us to align with our new software as a service ethos. We've seen other projects within the library, such as our research repository, begin the move to a cloud solution. So this is the route that we'd like to take with the digital library too. So this will result in a consolidation of systems and costs, which is obviously more straightforward for everybody, and it's greatly beneficial to the library. It'll align with our library strategic plan, most notably the key initiative 5, which is developing and maintaining preservation and curation infrastructure. Overall, I think it will improve efficiency and consistency in all manner of things, from how we curate and preserve and provide access to collections, but also in terms of staff and resources and budget. And I think these last two bits are really the whole point of this. It will provide us the freedom to grow and thrive and build on the work of the last 10 years and the knowledge and experience that we hold within our team. And I think the most fundamental part of this is that it will demonstrate the suitable care and respect for our digital collections from now into the future. So that's me. Thanks for listening. If anybody would like any more information or would like to get in touch, here are my details and the digital library details. So feel free to get in touch.